أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Our dear viewers, welcome once again to your favorite program, that is Why Religion, which comes to you from MTA Gambia Studios. As you already know, we've been bringing you various topics of discussion under this series of Why Religion. And today, the topic that we have chosen to talk about, to discuss and to dissect is heaven and hell, the concept of heaven and hell. What is heaven? What is hell? Where is heaven? Where is hell? To go into the details of it and to broaden our understanding of this very important thing that's part of our faith, this important concept that's part of our faith, or even people of no faith. What could their understanding be as far as the topic of heaven and hell is concerned? With me here in the studio to discuss this program, to discuss this topic, to give you a better understanding of the concept of heaven and hell. On my immediate right, I'll introduce my guest. The first guest that I have on my immediate right is Ustaz Ibrahim Abba, who is a missionary of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, the Gambia, and he's serving in MTA Gambia itself. Welcome to the program, and you're no guest, of course, here in these studios. On my far right is Brother Musa Kinte, who has been a long-standing member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, the Gambia. He has served in various capacities, but of course professionally he serves in the GRA, the Customs and Excise Department, the government of the Gambia. We welcome you, Mr. Kinte, to the program as well. I'll start with you on my immediate right, Ustaz Ibrahim Abba. When we talk about heaven, or when we talk about hell, let's start with heaven. Let's start on the good side. What's your understanding, or how do you explain to us what the concept of heaven is?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. To start with, I think heaven and hell is part of the faith of all revealed religions. That includes Islam. For Islam, it is part of our faith, and to believe in heaven and hell, their existence, is what completes our iman, our faith. Therefore, we have in many places in the Holy Quran and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, how he described heaven and hell. But heaven in particular, as you have asked, is described in the Holy Quran as a place called a garden in which sometimes you find some verse of the Holy Quran describing us where streams of water flow, where streams of milk, streams of honey flow. And we have also been given some other descriptions in heaven, like its fruits, its pure fruits, which are diverse, and the type of clothes that those who enter heaven will be allowed to wear, and what type of mates they will actually meet in heaven. And that is all accompanied with the pleasure of Allah, which is described in the Holy Quran as the highest of gains. Whatever you might gain in the world, once you enter heaven, the pleasure of Allah will be the most precious thing you have ever had in heaven. So in short, this is how the Holy Quran and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ described heaven and hell. Now, I want to give us one verse of the Holy Quran. In fact, there are many verses, but I choose this particular verse for a reason, because it mentioned the two sides, male and the females. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in chapter 9, verse 72, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا وَمَسَاكِنَ طَيِّبَةً فِي جَنَّاتِ عَدْنٍ وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, Allah has promised to believers, men and women, gardens beneath which rivers flow, wherein they will abide, and delightful dwelling places in gardens of eternity, and the pleasure of Allah is the greatest of all. That is the supreme triumph.
Okay, so that's a beautiful introduction to what heaven is. Mr. Kinder, coming to you. When we talk about, we'll come back to more details of what heaven is, but when we come to hell, for example, the general concept that people may have, and you can clarify that for us, is this place which is terrible, it's fire, people will be thrown into it and you'll burn to the ashes. People have these descriptions have been given. Are we expecting a huge fire that's the biggest and the hottest fire that people will be fried into or burn in, whatever description you want to give? How do you describe the nature of hell?
First of all, these descriptions of spiritual experiences are basically metaphorical in nature. And the reason is because the human being's experience in this world is physical. The spiritual path of our experience underlies that physical part, but the most prominent one is the physical experience. So if you want to be acquainted to something that you have never experienced before, the best way to do it is to draw a similitude, to look at what resembles that situation most aptly, and then depict that situation so that the person will have an understanding of what is to come. But of course, we have read in the Quran that for the spiritual world, nothing in this physical world resembles anything in the spiritual world as the life to come. So whatever we are saying is by way of an analogy, like drawing similarities. So hell, therefore, as a destination for those who in this world have fallen foul of the commandments of their Creator, is likened to a center where you undergo curative treatment. It's like you're failing to understand and appreciate the attributes of Allah, your Creator, and therefore you're not responding to the commands of your Creator the right way. It's seen as a defect, a spiritual malady that asks for a cure. And therefore, God being that perfect being has to have a way of curing it. Just like in our physical world, we have hospitals. If I suffer from malaria, I go to a hospital, and they give me probably quinine or one of these latest drugs that they have for treating malaria. And after I have gone through the therapy, at the end of the day, I recover from the illness. So that is the similitude you can draw between hell, that is the next life's experience, and this worldly life. The hell has been also described as the anger of drawing the wrath of Allah. Of course, if you're angry, let's compare God to a mother. If for instance a baby is born, all his source of grace and everything is the mother. So you imagine if that baby is estranged from the mother, if the mother is angry and decided to turn her back on the baby, it will be untold suffering for the child, because he has no source of sustenance besides the mother. So that also is another similitude of hell, being that your Lord, who is your spiritual sustenance in the next life, has drawn away from you.
Okay. So I think what we understand from this is we are not expecting any physical garden, or we're not expecting any physical fire that one would enter into. I think that's a beautiful way of kind of describing that everything that we'll be talking about in this program is a spiritual phenomenon. It's not something that anyone has experienced before. But what we also did is, before we come back into the second segment of the program, after introducing what this is, we also asked members of the public what their opinion is, what they think, what their understanding is as far as the topic of heaven and hell is concerned. We asked them some questions, and we'll watch that. We'll hear what they have said, and we'll come back into the studio to also discuss other aspects of this program as well. Please enjoy that and then come back with us here in the studio.
Well, heaven is a place where every beautiful thing you can imagine are found. A peaceful life is enjoyed, and you will live there forever, till eternity. You will not die, you will not feel sick. You know, it's just like a good life. You're just gonna live a good life in heaven. But when it comes to hell, hell is just, it's a place where disasters come, fire. Like, you are going to be burnt majority of the time because due to your sins that you commit in this dunya.
Every single day I pray to go to heaven because true what people say, it's the most beautiful thing ever. So everyone want to go to heaven, even you want to go to heaven. So yeah, according to what they said, it's everlasting because like through the little education that I have about this religious stuff, we believe that like heaven is a place that you will stay forever, but you will never die again. So in hell also is another living place where you will never come again. So to my own perspective,
Based on what we learn when we know them data, it's like a place created by God, and then yeah, that's it. It's like a spiritual place. It's like a belief we talked about and things like that. Yeah.
Welcome back, our dear viewers. We hope you've enjoyed and you've listened to members of the public who shared their opinions as far as heaven and hell is concerned. Coming back here, another question that is often raised is where heaven and hell is, because as far as this world is concerned, you know, we go to places, we live in this world, we have our experiences, but then we are told that after we die, there is this place that we go to, either it's heaven or hell. But where is that? Ustaz Ibrahim, if we could ask that question.
Okay, first of all, what we should understand, even in this physical world, we have not been able to perform everything. And it's likely we will not be able to, no matter how advanced we are. And one mistake people always commit is, if this thing exists, why can't we see it? Or if something exists, why are we deprived from seeing it? And that is a very big mistake, because there are a lot of things we use. And people ask this only when it comes to religious matters, or when it comes to the concept of God. Right. So, but in the physical world, there are also a lot of things that we use, but we have never questioned, why don't we see them? For example, even by looking at ourselves, there are a lot of things that is happening within our system that we have not been able to see. We are just told we can talk, we have voices. Where is that coming from? And a lot of other things that, you know, people have never questioned is there. Now, when it comes to heaven and hell, the Holy Quran have given a description of heaven, saying that it will be a place bigger than the earth and the heavens. And that should also take us to another level. Then, where should that be?
If we can already see
of course, not in this physical world.
Right.
So that will tell us that heaven and hell is not anything physical. But one thing worthy of note here too is, it is here that we build our heavens, and it is here too that we construct our hells. Because I've once listened to the fourth Khalifa radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He was describing the concept of heaven and hell. And he said that the good things that you have been doing in this world is just a continuation. I mean, Allah should not deprive you of that when you go to the next world. But then the bad things you have been doing, also it is just that Allah should not deprive you of the same thing. So it's just a continuation. So heaven and hell is something spiritual. So when we ask where it is exactly, there is nobody who knows that except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So, Mr. Kinte, he mentioned that our deeds kind of have a connection with the hereafter, the determining. Could you throw a little bit of light on that? How does our deeds in this world, whether good or bad, have an effect?
Just before I come to that, maybe I should say this, that I recall this hadith where the Holy Prophet was asked this same question, that if this whole expanse is this dunya, then where is akhirah? And he said, the answer he gave was beautiful. He said, if the night comes, where is the day? So it means, and taking it from there, it means it's the same space. When it comes to space, it's the same. The difference is the state. The state is different from the space. Space-wise, there is no end to this universe. We are told by scientists that the universe is expanding at the speed of light. And if there is no known end to the universe, he said that it is like the absence of one state is the existence of the other. So if you're not in this physical body, then you are clothed with a spiritual body, and then you're in the state of heaven or hell, depending on your actions here. So as now your question comes, what is the question is again, how do our deeds interpret into that? Yes, what's happening is the Quran said, if you act, he said every action is like a bird, and once you have done it, it flies, and it leaves its imprint on your heart. But of course, we know of the existence of our conscience, and we know that when we do certain acts that are not good, sometimes we go to bed and we find it difficult to sleep. That restlessness is some kind of hell, is some kind of burning inside, is that regrets, misgivings, that why have I committed this act? But that is in this world where our understanding and our sensitivities to our actions is limited. In the spiritual world, we are told that this will be an improved human being, and a human being whose sensitivities will be at so much variance with this physical world that it is beyond imagination. So that every little thing that you do, will come back to you. In that fantastic way, you will see the imprint manifest itself in a manner that's going to cause you, if it is good, it will cause you enjoyment beyond human imagination in this physical world.
So what we're saying is when we die physically, now the body is left here.
Yes.
So how do we transition and have that same experience? If the body is left here, then wouldn't all the deeds just disappear, or does it continue?
I need to borrow from Fort Khalifa's word. He said in the ether, he used the word ether. He said it's like a package of energy that is left in this environment. And that energy is called the soul. And that soul, Allah gives it a body. And that body, Allah said in the Quran, is a body of light. So the strength of the light depends on the strength of your righteous deeds.
Okay.
If you have not been a righteous person, yours will be dark instead of light. Okay. So that is one thing. And the Quran has told us that heavenly people, on the day, a day will come that they will see their light run in front of them and on their right hands. So that light is the light you're creating by your righteous deeds in this world. Failing to do which, instead of light, you will get the reverse. Okay. So that depicts the situation as it is.
So it's like we're building it. Our deeds is determining as we go on.
Precise.
So it's just like we're moving forward.
Exactly.
After we died. It's not like it ends, but it's a continuation. Okay. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. But Ustaz, coming back to you and what we witness in this world, how can one, let's say somebody going to heaven, how can they possibly start experiencing that? in this world. If you could give a little description of that. How can one experience a bit of heaven while they're still alive?
You know, if we even go back to history, we find out that there are a lot of people who have particularly enjoyed their life in this world, I mean spiritually. But when you look at their life and those people who were around them, they were always persecuted. And some of them were killed. Some of them suffered. But you find out that they have always enjoyed that communion with Allah. And that has made them very, very steadfast. They are unmovable, unshakable. Now, that will tell us that it is not always what happens around you determines what is deep down. And it is what is deep down that matters to Allah and in the hereafter. Right. So no matter what comes around, as long as you have that communion with Allah, you have that faith in Allah, you will always find out that you live your life calm. You are satisfied with
happy.
everything.
I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. So it doesn't matter what people see.
It doesn't matter.
Inside, right?
And the Holy Quran have given us a description of that. And this verse said, وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِنْ ثَمَرَةٍ رِزْقًا قَالُوا هَذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِنْ قَبْلُ وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُطَهَّرَةٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Allah have said in this verse, and give glad tidings to those who believe and do good works, that for them are gardens beneath which flow streams. Whenever they are given a portion of fruit therefrom, they will say, this is what was given us before, and gifts mutually resembling shall be brought to them, and they will have therein mates perfectly pure, and therein they will abide. Now the particular part of the verse, that is, Allah said, if those souls which were given all the trouble in the world, but then they feel satisfied with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given them, when they are taken to heaven, they will see similar things that is brought to them, and they will say, but we did test this in the life before.
Right.
And it will be said, it's similar, but it's different.
Right. It's more manifest.
Yeah.
Now.
You have tested this in the world, but then its perfection is what you find here.
Right.
So it's just like having a taste of heaven here in the world is what the Holy Quran have taught. Having a taste of hell in this world is again what the Holy Quran have taught us.
So it becomes like you're giving them like a little teaspoon, so that keeps them steadfast to know that there's something bigger. But this is also often asked, how long will we stay in heaven, or how long will we stay in hell?
I like this previous answer, and it's wonderful in that, yes, we have said it's what you build in you. It's what the hell will be like, the despondency, the lack of hope, the worries that you go through. And when he was talking, it reminded me of Hadhrat Ali. They said there was an incident that he was shot with some arrow or something, and the piece of it broke into the leg. And to remove this thing was so painful, it's like unbearable. And the Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do not worry, wait until he starts to pray. He started praying and they removed it and he didn't feel it. So it's medical science will tell you that the mind is so powerful. You can, if it is started, it can be focused in a particular way, and the body won't feel anything. So it is this, and that's why, the heaven is actually Allah. It is, and it says also, the Quran said, it is only in the remembrance of Allah that the mind can find comfort. Right. So he was in his comfort zone so much so that the pain was not, he didn't realize the pain. So it's a taste of heaven here just to complement what he has said. Again, how long will it last? We are told that since heaven is God himself and his pleasure, so we are certain that heaven is everlasting. By the mere fact that Allah is everlasting. But hell, of course, which is the anger of God, Allah has said, وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِيَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, that his mercy encompasses everything. And therefore, mercy is the final attribute that is finally going to be manifested and will last forever. I borrow from a hadith that I've heard that it says, there will come a day on hell that not a single soul will remain therein. And the breeze of Sabah will rattle its doors and windows. A metaphorical, beautiful metaphorical expression of hell as though it's depicted like a house where it will be so empty that you will hear the doors and the the windows rattling as the wind of Sabah blows through it. So not a soul will remain therein. So Allah cannot command us to be merciful. And then we expect his anger to be everlasting.
Right.
He cannot tell us we should exercise sabr when he himself is not forbearing. Of course, that is not manifested in this world, so why will we expect it in the next world? His anger will come to an end at some point.
Right.
May God forbid that he's angry with us, but if he's angry even, it will go to a certain point and his mercy will come.
Right.
What will it benefit God for his creation to suffer endlessly?
Right.
I mean, that's not the God we know. That's not the God.
As you rightly described in the beginning as well, it's like a hospital. Once that dirt or that malady is taken out, then he'll finally submit this.
The party.
Right.
But you can't suffer from malaria, and the very food that you should enjoy is going to be so obnoxious. The smell of it will be so horrible. You'll begin to throw up.
Right. Even no matter how nice the food is, if you're not feeling well, of course, your taste buds tend to reject it.
Exactly.
Of course, coming back to you, of course, heaven is something that everyone who understands it would want to enter heaven, and hell is something that everyone who kind of starts to comprehend of what it means, you would naturally want to stay away from it. But should that be the purpose of why we worship? Should that be the aim of, I'm just worshiping so I can enter heaven, or so I can just stay away from hell? Is that the ultimate purpose of our creation, of our worship?
No, that is not.
Yeah.
Because it's like a bargain. If you will be doing that, you are trying to enter a bargain with Allah. And that is not the ultimate purpose of our creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have on numerous places in the Holy Quran directed our attention to one thing when we are doing something good, and that is to get the pleasure of Allah. And that pleasure of Allah will ultimately get us to a destination called heaven. Right. But if we are doing anything with having at the back of our mind that let me do this so that I will get heaven in return, that is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have taught us in the Holy Quran. For example, in one verse he said, إِنَّمَا نُطِعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. Those good souls who have understood the concept of Allah, the Rahmaniyat of God, they will say to others, we have not fed you to receive any gift or even thank you. We have just fed you to get the pleasure of Allah. Right. So our ultimate goal in everything that we do in this world should be to get the pleasure of Allah. And in that case, we will not be disappointed. And we will not also get tired of doing good. Right. Because
it doesn't become a burden.
It doesn't become a burden.
Right.
Because once you think, okay, you are doing something good, to get a reward or a thank you, if you doesn't get that, you relax.
Right.
I've done this for him or her, and even thank you, he or she doesn't tell me. So our ultimate purpose should be to get the pleasure of Allah, and that will get us to a place called Al-Jannah.
So it just comes along with it. You aim for the bigger one, and this one just comes along. But as you said, to keep that motivation going, your aim really matters. What about with hell? Somebody can decide to pray, fast, because they're scared of going to hell. How would you see that person?
Not very different from what Usas has said. First of all, it is what's worship? Mm-hmm. It's in a sense build a relationship with God. It in a sense show that belonging. Put yourself aside and live for God alone. If you look at, yes, hell is there because it's like, we know that in human experience. Some people, it is love that spurs them on. Mm-hmm. And for them, show them love and they will kill themselves for you. Mm-hmm. But not everybody is like that. There are some, even when we bring up children, like I have a family, you realize that there are some who you will have to threaten a bit so that they can straighten up. Right. Otherwise, if there is no threat, then they will just go wayward. Never mind how much love you pour around them, they will take it for granted and they will, self-aggrandizement and everything. They'll take things as though, they deserve that. It should be done. Until they know the opposite, the lack of it, it will kind of spur them to behave in the right manner. But you have people who naturally, the more you love them, the more they reciprocate. And for them, you don't need to threaten. Right. So we have people who are at this, in the spiritual world also like that. Right. There are people who, I recall the fourth Caliph saying, in one of the things that I just saw a short glimpse of it on video. He was saying, and with tears coming, he said, you see, I don't mind, whether I suffer or not, whether Allah decides that I should suffer or not. All I'm afraid of is, let him not be angry with me. So I was like, I sat back, I thought of this, I said, wow. So he's saying, yes, people suffer, spiritual people, highly spiritual people, it is trial for them. They welcome it because they see it from God. They say we have a relationship. Today he gives me something good. Tomorrow when he gives me a taste of something bad, why will I forget of all those good things he has done for me? Absolutely. He narrated the story of a particular Persian king, I think he said, or maybe somebody from Spain. He said he had a council of ministers. And the most junior one, he promoted and made him vice president. And the rest were angry. He knew it, but he kept it that way. On an occasion, he had this melon kind of thing that he wanted to give them. Right. So he saw that melon and decided to slice it and give them a portion. The first portion, of course, was given to his favorite, this vice president. He ate it ravishingly and was so full of praise for the king. And then the second portion was given to one of the other ministers. The moment he took one bite of it, he spat it out, and the thing was, you could see on his face so much untold suffering. And the king was surprised and said, what happened? He said, this is the most bitter thing I have ever tasted in my life. So the king himself took a bite of it and couldn't just swallow this thing. It came out. So he turned around and looked at the vice president, the prime minister, and that is the youngest one to join, and his most favorite, yes. Right. And he said, but I gave you the same thing. Why didn't you tell me this? He said, how dare I tell you this? What ingratitude will that be? You have made, I'm the most junior, you have made me your prime minister, and then since I knew you, you have been fantastic to me, you have given me all the good things. How can you give me one slice of something bitter and I complain? He said, this is the attitude of God's favored ones towards Allah.
Right, absolutely.
They will not complain. Suffering will only spur them on.
That's amazing. That's a beautiful narration indeed. Ustaz, coming back to you, you being an Ustaz yourself, a teacher, sometimes we do see that some scholars, some Islamic scholars, when they are going around preaching or telling people about God, they tend to use the fear-mongering style. You know, if you don't pray, God will do this to you. If you don't fast, you will be beat and you will, be thrown into fire. They scare people into the faith. That style, is that something that you're in favor of? Is that how God should be presented to people? Like he's a monstrous being that will just punish you for every single mistake that you do, or it should be the other way around?
That is not a style that somebody who properly know who Allah is should adopt. You know, as you were asking the question, is as if you were sending me back to my junior school days when our ustaz adopted that style, and we will come out of class and say, there is no need to pray. Because whether you pray, whether you fast, whether you do all the good things, at the end of the day, you do some other bad things and you are going to hell. So we would say among ourselves, let's just do the bad things. Because in that way, we will not be having another burden on us of doing good.
Right.
So, especially for children, you know, even if you are grown up, if you hear that, you can try to distinguish the good and the bad.
Right.
But for children, it's like hammering that into their brains, and they will leave it with it for the rest of their lives.
Right.
The most vulnerable with such kind of preaching are the young ones. And religious scholars should present God as he presented himself.
Right.
And you will see that in the very opening of the Holy Quran, the Surah Al-Fatiha. How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describe himself? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim says it all. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has presented himself as someone who is merciful. I mean, even if you would tell people of the wrath of Allah, it's good. But first of all, start from his mercy. Tell them how merciful, how loving, how caring Allah is. And then they will know how Allah loves them. But then tell them also, if they do not live up to the commandments of Allah, this is the consequences.
Right.
So that they will not be believing, you will not let them believe that your Allah is a cruel Allah. So my take on that would be, let the scholars of Islam present Allah as he is presented in the Surah Al-Fatiha. But again, they can warn people. But like the Prophet ﷺ used to do, when he will want to warn his Sahabas, he has some occasions that he will do it. And he will do it in a way that they will feel as if this is going to happen right now. But it should not be a pattern that you follow every day, that same thing, every day, that same thing. Then people will lose the other side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Right, absolutely. I think that's a beautiful way. Any final comments from you, Mr. Kinte, before we close? We have about 2 minutes for final thoughts. I saw you there nodding your head. I wanted you to add something.
I think Ustaz has dealt with it so aptly. Like one of the quotations I made here was, wa rahmati wasi'a kulli shay'in. If Allah's mercy, is the all-encompassing attribute, why are we dwelling unnecessarily, eternally, so vehemently on his wrath? When it has, even like he has said in Surah Al-Fatiha, the only inference to wrath is that he is Malik Yawmiddin. And even there, because he is Malik, it infers that there is also an element of mercy in it. Like he says, he can forgive. If you're the master of something, you can either give it or not give it. You can even give it to those who do not deserve it. So Allah, of course, estranging, like I said, estranging yourself from, I said he has referred to himself as a mother. a wise mother will never be, no mother actually, never mind how ugly or, this child is, the mother is always loving and caring. And when he himself, for some occasion, needs to exchange, she herself needs to keep herself away from the child to show him or her, what is good, the mother also suffers along.
Yeah.
So this is the same. This is just a bit of the love of God Almighty for His creation that He has put in the mother. I think that's all.
Thank you so much. That does solve it. Dear viewers, I'm sure you're enjoying the proceedings of this program. We're here to deal with the topic of heaven and hell under this show that we have for you, Why Religion. I'm your host, Abdullah Diba, and this is where we'll end today's discussion as far as this topic is concerned. Until we see you again here from the MTA Gambia Studios, I say a very warm Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to you. May the peace and blessings of Allah Almighty be upon you all.